I need something from her though, because she like loves it.
Do you guys have to sign up too? Or?
I need to take it.
Oh, I think he's.
Yep, he's got it. Yep. Jen, did you get that? All right, thanks for coming to our SAC meeting. So first things first, let's just do a quick whip round because it's been a long time since we have met. It would be almost at the beginning of the year. So November 28th seems like a million years ago. So we'll just kind of loop around. Josh Miller, I have one daughter. She's 16, and she's like a ghost in my house. She just floats in for food and money and floats back out.
Ashley Zakowski. I'm a GT facilitator in PLS here, and I have a first grader here and a third grader.
I'm Darren Fury. I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, John and Eden Fury, and a wife. That's how I got them. And yeah, that's it.
How can I follow with that? I mean, geez. I'm Jen. I have a sophomore at SHAP, and I have a third grader here who so it's just great as buttons. I'm not sure. Oh, yes. It's quite and I become really good friends, and I'm like, yes. You're shocked? Yes. Absolutely. No joke. She likes to break the rules a little bit, pushes her buttons. But I think Miss Queen's a little bit, not exactly more tough. No, she's good rolling ones. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. Favorite color?
I'm Kimmy Jensen, and I also work here at CTE, and I have 3 children. Leah, who's a sophomore, and then Ryan, who's at Sierra, 7th grader, and then Bella, who's a 4th grader, Miss Duncan's class. And I'm also married, so I got my
That's how
kids.
you got
All the
How about
same.
the dog? How'd you get the dog?
Oh, I love my dog. She's crazy. I love her. She's been a long freaking way. She's a Rottweiler, purebred. And she was crazy at first. And we almost had to rehome her. I tried to hit up Mr. Miller. He was like, no, I'm too busy. So, but I'm grateful because we love her and she's improved a lot. And she's a giant, though. I love her. I'm Maggie.
So my name is Jen Richmond, and I work here as well as an EA. And I am pretty much supporting 6th grade or a 6th grader and 3rd grade and Mrs. Clayton's class. And I have 2 kids and 2 boys in 6th grade here. And I'm also married.
Twins. Same dad.
Twinsies, same dad. That would be interesting to have twins with different dads. Is that possible? I doubt it. I don't know. Anyway,
That's why I'm straight, right? She started this.
it's science. Biology.
Oh, boy.
I should know. I'm Laura, the CSP president. I have a preschooler, first grader in John's house, and a 4th grader.
What's his name?
Wyatt.
Why? Oh, yeah. Why?
I'm Miss Shriver.
Oh, okay.
Just Mr. Mrs. Bill, Mrs.
What is it today? I don't see him much, but I'm just married.
Still married.
Hey, Angela.
I'm Angela. I'm a 3rd grader in Miss Connor's class, Calvin, and a 3-year-old. And not the same dad because Claire is adopted. See? Everybody knows heads.
You wouldn't know though. I mean, they really do look like siblings.
She has her dad's attitude. Yeah, that's me. I'm also married.
Great. Okay. So what we talked about last time and just kind of run through the notes. I didn't get a chance to print those out. Is we talked about our enrollment was at 540 is our official number. Some of the things that we used our extra funds for. We are fixing Mr. Howley's music floor. So if you've been in the music room, there's the stairs. We are taking those out. So then it's going to be a flat surface, a little bit safer for the kids. We paid for training for the staff. And we, looked at some ideas to fix up the school. We're still actually looking at those ideas. Ash and I just haven't seemed to connect on that. We talked about our iReady diagnostic, hoping 50% growth. We talked about 5A passing and 5B that didn't. And then we just talked about our EPR, which is our mid-year kind of report card. So moving into our current piece, we talked just a little bit about 5A passing, and that was a 9% raise for all of our certified teachers. Is a great financial windfall for our staff.
Are all of the teachers certified? Sorry.
Not all teachers are certified. Everybody did get a raise. Classified. Certified would mean our classroom teachers. Classified would be our support staff.
Like on top of that.
Yep. So everybody received a raise. 5B did not pass, and so we talked about that in PSP as well. So that basically means that there's no funding for projects. So our projects here are our carpet, our controls for our HVAC system. Those were not funded. Kind of the big pieces. The other last big piece is 6th grade still remains in our building. We have to have a bond pass, so then Sierra can then build out. So 6th grade would be supported at the middle school. That's kind of their next steps. So even if they pass the bond today, it's a 3-year turnaround, and that's at a minimum because
Oh, my goodness.
yeah, Sierra is on well water, so they have to redo it. It's a lot of construction. So just keep that in the back of mind. And so it's a 3-year turnaround as far as we know, but we have to have a bond before that. We can't afford other pieces. Other than that, our next big item is our budget. Normally I like to put out what our budget looks like for next year. We've got a new program. This year it's called Questica. It works very well with Workday. And so if you're familiar with Workday, a lot of major corporations use it for their HR practices and budgetary practices. And our old system did not play with that. And so it was 2 separate entities. And so now it's connected. And so it's been a huge learning curve. I always use the analogy, all we really need is a tricycle to work our budgets, and they've given us a Ferrari. So it's this very complex, large, nebulous system. So the learning curve has been very steep. The good news is our budget looks great this year. We did not have to eliminate any positions. In fact, we can add positions, so everybody's job stays the same. The one position that's kind of big in everybody's mind is an assistant principal. I've not had assistant principal in about 5 years, so actually 4 years. And so that's a big shift. My assistant principal is just an extra layer on top of myself, so I don't have to clone myself. And so that's kind of the biggest piece. The other thing is we're going to kind of just sit and wait to see which grade levels we need to hire. We definitely need to have 4 sections of 4th grade and definitely need 4 sections of 2nd grade. Those are our 2 largest contingents of kids. And then we'll just kind of sit and wait to see what 1st, kindergarten, maybe even 3rd, 5th, or what numbers come in. It's so early in the school year that we don't like to make those determinations ahead of time. Right now, we've got 28 kids in kindergarten, so that's like, 7, 8 kids in class. So that's not going to stay the same. We just have to wait and see what comes in over the summer. 3rd grade and 2nd grade, 1st grade is sitting at about 18 kids. If that starts bumping up into 22, 23, then we'll pull the trigger and hire another section. Same with 3rd grade. 3rd grade's even less. So we'll just kind of manage that. Again, that just kind of is an ongoing thing. But we have money in the budget for that. We just have to kind of just wait and see. Other than that, we are just going to kind of sit to see whether or not we want to do anything changing with our special schedule. If we only have 2 grade levels with 4 sections, we may keep it the way it is. We may have to revamp the entire thing because we could potentially have 5 sections of 4 grade levels. So right now kids go to art, music, and PE, which fits really nicely with 3 specials. And then they go to wellness, art, and library. Our kindergarten and 1st have 4 specials. So we've kind of had to ramp up our production of that. So if we have 5 sections, or 5 grade levels of 4 sections, then we really have to change something different. But again, we just have to wait and see on the numbers on that. From there, we've been doing a lot of training around several things. So thanks to our PSP, we were able to send quite a few primary teachers to the CCIRA conference, which is a reading conference. It's a national conference. We had a lot of people who were very excited to attend that, and they brought some things back here. In addition, I'll have Ashley explain it again. She explains it better than I do. We've sent quite a few teachers to depth and complexity training. So I'll let you jump in on that because you're good at it.
Yeah, so depth and complexity is a framework that overlays the curriculum or content that you're teaching, and it's really a way of thinking about what you're learning for students. And there are a set of icons, like picture symbols associated with the different things. Like there's one for main idea and one for details. And so it's to encourage exactly what the title is, that depth and complexity around content. And so our district department for advanced academics and gifted education sponsors that, but it's something that's good for every student. And so we're pretty excited to bring that back to Cherokee Trail. A lot of teachers are using depth and complexity, and then we'll have the opportunity to just get better at it.
All right. The other thing, we just had our professional development day on Friday. So we sent 4th and 5th grade teachers downtown, and they went around and did a bunch of Colorado history pieces. They looked at the Capitol, they went to the Ball Bear Roundhouse, and saw opportunities for field trips potentially for our students. And they brought those experiences back and some things they could bring into the classroom. We also did some training. It's called U-Flies, which is more of a phonics-based kind of gap filler. We trained all of our staff in that as well during that time. And then we always like to give them some time as well to be able to catch up on different things. And so that was Friday. What else did I talk about? I think that was it. Okay. All right. So from there, we do have our state testing coming up. And so that is for grades 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And that's essentially our state mandated test that we are required to take every year. Our English language test is April 1st, and we'll do 3 sections, 1 section a day for 3 days. And then if any students who are absent, we have to make them up in the next couple days. Then we'll move into the math portion, which is again 3 sections. So we'll do that in 3 days. And then any makeups after that. And then we'll probably double dip math because 5th grade has to teach or has to instruct science. And so 5th grade will just double up that day for them. And that's always really super fun. We don't do a ton of like test prep. We just basically just do the same concepts as we've always done and just kind of prep our kids for just a change in the schedule. That's really the biggest thing for us is that kind of just they spend a good 2 hours of the day testing. And so it's just a lot for them. That's why we try to get it done as soon as we can. So it's not such a huge impact. So. And the other thing we need to talk about is SAC participation. And so if you're interested in SAC for next year, then we'll talk about it at our final meeting, which is April 23rd. And then if you want to do SAC for the following year, then we can talk about that just to kind of put it in the back of your mind that that's going to be talked about the next meeting. All right. So now it's Ashley Jakubowski.
Yeah.
Teacher update.
I was just noticing on the CMAS dates too. If any of you are like locking these exact dates in your calendar, I would just let you know that ELA is April 1st through 3rd, math is the 4th through 8th, and then science is the 8th through 12th. That's just a detail. Our classroom teachers have just finished up a benchmark unit all around the theme for each grade level that basically stories can tell a lesson or teach a lesson. That's what they've been working on. Lots of writing happening. We've had some embedded professional development every week during our PLT time to work on writing. 1st grades were doing would you rather writing. 4th grade just finished some writing related to Colorado history. Our specials team is working on a hands-only CPR for grades 2 through 5 to correspond with that Kids Heart Challenge. So those are the main things. Lots of math, lots of preparation for CMAS, really making sure that our kids have been engaging in rigorous learning so they're ready for the tests.
Can you, Deb Morgan's not on the call. Can you explain a little bit what the Kids Heart Challenge is while I'm pulling up the?
Yeah, so our PE teacher, Miss Whittingham, used to run Jump Rope for Heart, but she really realized that not as much of that money was going to what she had hoped it would. So now she partners with Parker Adventist Hospital, and she has really created her own customized fundraiser where the funds go to our local hospital here in Parker. And so she does a fantastic job of not only, doing the fundraising, but also instructing students around heart health and healthy habits and some of those pieces. And so it's new this year, this hands-on CPR. And so Miss Savado and Miss Whittingham have gone to training this fall to be able to bring that to our students. And so that's like kind of the next iteration. And so they're pretty excited about that. The whole specials team comes together. I'm sure as parents, you've seen the things that have gone home about the different, incentives and rewards kids receive for raising money. And so they partner to offer them different things like the big prize of the night in, right, with the specials teachers. So.
All right, and so now's about the time for our DAC update, which is our District Accountability Committee. Deb's not on the call, and so I just pulled up the agenda from the last meeting, which was January 18th, and it looks like their big discussion point was around the SITE focus group. And so what SITE is the teacher evaluation rubric. And so that's been shifted this year. And so teachers are rated on 6 essentially categories. One is professionalism, culture and climate, assessment, planning, and then actual instruction. And that's only 5. The 6th is their data. And so their data is kind of that final piece. They call it Site 6. And so how the students perform it gets relayed back to their evaluation. It used to be a 50-50 pie. And so if you were thinking about, kind of the slices in the pie, standards of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, assessment, planning, instruction, culture and climate, and professionalism was kind of half the pie. And then that Site 6, the student data, was the other half of the pie. Well, CDD has now changed that. So now it's a 70-30. And so there's only 30% of the data goes in there. And then the other 70% is those elements. And so teachers are evaluated every year. I'm in the middle right now of formal observations. So that means I'm going into every one of our classrooms, observing teachers, providing feedback. Ashley does the same thing for any teachers who have not been in the building more than 3 years are considered probationary. And so then we're in there twice. We're in there a lot more. Those are just the formalized process. And then again, we just provide feedback to those teachers. And then at the end of the year, which really is more like May 1st, because that's when our data is due, I give everybody their summative evaluation and tell them where they are ranked on those different categories. And then they get their data a short time afterwards, because it really revolves around not CMAS, but iReady, which is our diagnostic that we take 3 times a year. And so that's what was brought up at the DAC meeting, and that's where they spent the majority of the time on. Those are always super exciting. If you want to attend, it looks like the next meeting there, if you're ever interested and can't sleep at night, would be the March 28th. All right, PSP update, Laura Schreiber.
I don't know, in our PSP meeting, we talked about how meeting night was not too successful and possibly what went wrong. Looking ahead to the dance, we are just going to amp up our advertising and flyers and emails and threats.
Will it be an all, like a neighborhood dance, or is it just?
No, it's just a school.
Okay. Just making sure, just checking.
We talked about possibly adding an event for the volunteers at the end of the school year. Not sure what that's gonna look like yet, but I think we're all wanting to.
Right. And that was one of our SAC priorities from the beginning of the year, was parent involvement. And so it's kind of like a thank you for volunteering during the course of the year, which we've not done in a while. So I think that's a really good idea.
And then looking way ahead, I think I'll probably rebrand, if you will, the PTO for next year and just try to start fresh with kind of new guidelines and rules and hopes.
And way to engage people.
And yeah, some different strategies to get people in and keep them.
Yeah.
Sound like a serial killer.
Do you know if like anything is shared with like new families to join? Like when, first day of school, or when Bree's doing the spiel and they're like, I love this school, we're gonna come here. Like at what point would it be appropriate to say, like, you seem like you'd be a great fit for everything.
Yeah, usually back to school night is when we really, typically when we're doing tours is when people are choosing between schools. So we don't really hit it up then. It's usually back to school night.
Back to school, a little different too. Just some ways, just different ways.
So we get a ton of new families after
Mm-hmm.
drive to school, a lot. And so that's where I feel like when they do decide to come here, like if there's a flyer or something we can throw into them.
We might be able to, because typically we have students that have our welcome committee. So I wonder if we could put something in there, because we usually get the kids and the family something. Yeah.
I don't think we started 3 weeks after in second grade and we
Yeah.
didn't know anything, so, because it was so late into really, it was pretty late into
Yeah.
the school year.
And we just had a family start today.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
So yeah, just kind of some tweaks to change things next year. I think that, honestly, I think a small amount of people do a pretty good job running PSP. I'm looking to the future and trying to build PSP as a whole so that there's people to replace us. And right now there is nobody. So it's kind of like we need to restart.
So there's a lot we're finding out that we didn't know, talking about stuff that we didn't know needed to be done, and we're learning.
Yeah, we're learning.
in this world.
Better visibility next year, like you said, like something like or some kind of a process, to keep all organized. And I think Sign Up Genius is great for like a volunteer here or for an event, but like as a whole, just having some kind of system in place where people know, hey, this is where I go to help. Will help.
And also teach engagement while they use it.
Yeah, so I think that we can really push from our end, but you have to nudge from your end.
Yeah.
You know, like we're doing this. I know you came in and did like a volunteer spiel and they still don't really know what to do with that. And so it's kind of like, okay, we're gonna create this thing for you. We gave you a chance, you didn't do it, so now you have to fill this out and this is what we're doing.
Yep.
And maybe you don't want volunteers, but the teacher next year will. And so we just have to set this precedent that we help at this school.
Yeah.
Or the specials library, cafeteria sometimes.
I think welcoming parents into the classroom is like super important to have that collaboration with the parents and the teachers to say like,
You get to know the teacher, you get to know the students, what they're, I mean, I really enjoy being in the class.
it makes you feel like this is your home school. It makes you not want to jump ship and go to a charter or whatever.
You get to know the teachers and, yeah.
Like last year, we literally were like so in love with our teacher and so in love coming in here and so, you know, I know he's like he thinks he's a superstar here, but, yeah. But like it really made a difference for us, especially coming from like a really bad experience.
Yeah.
I
So
don't honestly think though that all of our teachers are excited about having volunteers.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's just like different personalities, and I get that, but it would be awesome if you'd all welcome them, but again.
and the good news for us is it's on the new evaluation is how you're bringing in parents, how to communicate with parents, do differential communication. So that's new. And so again, those are the conversations that we'll be having in the next month and a half.
That's important because there's some
That is
parents
really
who don't get communication. They're like, I don't know what my teacher's doing.
Correct.
How do I find out? I'm like, talk to your teacher. And like I do, I email
Mhm.
or whatever.
And we've got that feedback before. We've got some families with multiple kids, and so it's not equitable of services. We've got one teacher that does something all the time, and you've got one that does nothing. So yeah.
And like the example, me and Ashley just had a meeting, and I was like, I have no idea how he's doing. Like, and it just, the weekly email is great, but that's not indicative to like how my child's doing. So I think that was like the miscommunication, and I actually am in the classroom and I am doing stuff, and I still didn't feel like I was doing that until I asked, but I don't think I would have felt comfortable to ask if I wasn't in the classroom,
Yeah.
wasn't getting. So I think it's fair if teachers don't want certain kind of help. But also, I think they've been doing it for alone for so many years now with COVID. Maybe they actually do, they just don't know they need it. You know what I mean? So if you work it down the road, maybe they'll.
Well, and the, you know, the higher grades, like, you know, 4th and 5th, like really don't have any EAs, so they don't have anybody to do like their Thursday folders and stuff like that. And just, you know, that might help them. I don't know.
Well, and the thing with this, so it's called the Help Counter, it's like this volunteer platform. And so PSP could run it, but every teacher or librarian or art teacher can input what they need. And so if you don't like volunteer, or you don't want volunteers, you can still put on there, here's a link to something I can use in my classroom. But as long as you're utilizing the system so that the parents as a whole get used to every year my kid's teacher, no matter how they communicate, is gonna use this system in some way. I can go here if I want to help.
And then like, Karen, for instance, could put something in there about like, you know, in Michelle, you know, these are hours for high schoolers to get their volunteer hours as well. Because I see that all the time all over like Facebook, like my kid needs hours, you know, what to do.
So we utilize that in cup stuff all the time. Like, oh, we need servers that are vulnerable, what kid in like an hour and a half, we never know adoption, foster care support group, who wants to come babysit, I always say sit on babies, for like an hour and a half and get hours. And like, these high schoolers are like, oh yeah, we can play with kids, sure. Throw a football, come get recess, whatever it needs, come help facilitate, give out bracelets at fun run.
It's about community too.
All right. What questions do you guys have for me?
I have one.
Okay.
So being that this school year, we had a lot more students than anticipated, at what point would we cut off open enrolling here versus trying to add classrooms or take away classrooms from specials and stuff like that? As a parent, I don't want to be at a school that is going to take resources away from my kids for other kids to open enroll, I guess.
Yeah, so that's funny you asked that. We closed open enrollment this year for that very reason. So we were taking anybody and everybody all the time. And so when we had 50 some odd new families, it put a huge strain on our system. And then it was helpful for us because we got a lot of extra resources, but then we have closed open enrollment for this year. We have not taken a single one.
But there's kids that are here that are already open enrolled.
Yeah.
That's a good question, because I was wondering the same thing. Sometimes I feel bad asking because I work here and I have to like teeter that line of, so I'm glad you asked that because I definitely.
I have friends that come here that we adore them and we adore their family. They don't live here.
Mhm.
And they've been open enrolled since preschool, which
Yep.
is fine. And so they're continuing to be allowed, but is there at some point that we say like, hey, unfortunately this year we can't have it?
Yeah, once they're in the building, then we can't just say no, but we just have closed the door to our other families that want to come in. We are celebrated for our work with special education students. And so we've got a lot of people we've got families coming all the way from Aurora for those services. But like I said, we've closed the door and hopefully we can kind of level the fences a little bit. And I have a feeling we're going to lose. We've got a large population that live in our apartments. And so we feel that there's going to be a turnover. So I think there's going to be a reduction. So actually we were slated for 517 students this year. And I dropped that number down to 500 because I just think we're going to have quite a few students that are going to leave. I don't think we're at 536 right now, but I don't think those families are going to stay. But we'll see. We'll see.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sort of around like EMAS.
Okay.
So does sixth grade do science?
Sixth grade does not do science, only fifth grade.
Okay. But do they learn science in sixth grade? Is it part of the curriculum for benchmark?
It's not part of the curriculum benchmark because benchmark is only a literacy curriculum. And so we try to double up and do, so for example, one class does science and mathematics, and then one class does social studies and writing, and then one class is solely literacy.
Okay. And then, so with the math and science, is it like one semester's math and like the next semester's science, or is it all sort of grouped in together?
So if you were to take our sixth grade and put them in the middle school, there's a standalone science teacher, there's a standalone math teacher. Since these are still general education teachers, they have to teach all the subjects. We only departmentalize to try to make it middle school-esque and just to try to fit in the, to try to fit in those pieces, we try to retro fit what our schedule looks like, which is why they departmentalize. And so we try to manage within that 45-minute time frame, we try to get science and mathematics in there.
Okay. So, yeah, because like, for instance, Thule does math and science. Right. So is it out of the norm that they've had one science class or one science lesson throughout February, whatever today is, 20th?
Mhm.
Is that normal that they don't have science on a regular basis?
They try to fit it in where they can. The hard part is if you try to balance what science versus math, then math is a higher focus of those pieces. And so they tend to lean on towards that now and again.
And do you think that that's because of CMAS? Because like they're going to be tested on math, so they don't really do science as much?
I think it's a matter of, in our eyes, the majority of the weight is mathematics, whereas, you try to get as much science in as you can. I don't think it has anything to do with CMAS as opposed to just trying to prepare them for middle school.
Okay. But there's no criteria around science, but it's just expected that it's being taught. Is
Yes.
that right? Okay.
But we have a curriculum and, they try to be able to do it. It's called STEM scopes.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
yeah, but I shouldn't have said they're like willy-nilly out there. Let's mix some stuff together and see what happens. And then I thought this was interesting. with as much data as iReady collects, I was recently looking into seeing if I could pull my kids' iReady scores for previous years to like compare and see like their growth. And I was dumbfounded to find out that we can't actually get that information. Right?
We have it.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys do?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Classroom
cool.
teachers have access to it too. So there's a data warehouse called EduClimber, which is what like a read plan is populated through, or what an advanced learning plan is populated through, and it also can provide like a student data report that shows historical data for
Cool.
kids. So teachers have access.
Yeah, teachers
to
have
that.
access to that.
Awesome. So I could like look at like fifth grade last year and see what their scores were and look at them this year.
Correct.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. When I spoke to like Miss Penny today, going, do you know if you can do that? She's like, I don't think so. I thought, man, there's all that data. That would be so cool to be able
Yeah,
to-
I don't think the teachers thought about the EduClimber piece. In iReady, it's hard because they have access to their own class. And like for us, what we can't do is we can't pull up teachers from different years. We can only pull, I have historical data for every student in the building.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. That's all I have.
For the science and math piece for sixth grade, is that district-wide? Or is it just our school?
It's just our school because we're the only, it's for our feeder because sixth grade is all, some schools can have science as a special, which is why we put STEAM as a special. So the kids have a little bit more of the exposure to it. There's only one feeder with sixth grade in all of Parker, and that's ours. Every other school only goes to fifth grade. So, yep.
From when I was a tutor in school too, because we did K through 6 where I grew up. When you go to seventh grade, that's actually when they start that knowledge of, like, you start in a general like science class. Usually it is biology, science or something, and then they can build it up to get ready for high school. So it's not as like you need math to do science, you need math to do all these other things. So that's like the hyper focus from like my experience.
Yeah.
When I used to like help the transition, I used to bridge kids. So yeah.
Oh, sorry, just to go back to that. Also, is vocabulary required in what the teachers should be, like a vocabulary test? Is that something that should be done like weekly, or is that sort of optional?
So tell me more about what do you mean vocabulary? Like you thinking spelling tests? You
Yeah,
thinking?
spelling tests, sorry, yeah. Regarding the vocabulary around what they're learning for like the week, like if they're learning about Black History Month, whatever vocabulary. might
Sure.
be.
Usually, and again, I can't speak for everybody, but for the most part, classroom teachers utilize vocabulary to front load what they're learning in those pieces. Some do it via spelling tests. Most do it just because a lot of the vocabulary and benchmark is very difficult. And so that's where those pieces come out. Now, if it comes in the form of spelling tests, I mean, typically that's just, kind of some remedial pieces on there. It's really understanding what the vocabulary means and in relation to the stories and stuff that they read. Can you expand more on that?
Yeah, I mean, the vocabulary within our curriculum is assessed on the weekly tests and the unit tests, and so not necessarily like spelling test style, but more through like reading comprehension type questions or analogies of parts, those types of things.
And you hear teachers talk about it because iReady across the district, vocabulary is always the lowest. Always.
Yeah.
And it has been since we've had it in for 6 years.
To piggyback off that, is there a certain grade that the spelling test stop? Because I know we kind of spoke about this too, like you had them every week in second grade and third grade.
So I know within the curriculum that we use, K2 is teaching phonics patterns, which is what students are tested on in spelling, and that's part of our required program. And then like Josh mentioned, depending on like a student's level and like the individual needs, they may or may not have spelling tests in intermediate grades, but it's really just part of our structured curriculum, K2.
Okay, cool. The only reason why I asked is just because there was just a difference when we had a longer sub in sixth grade who was sort of filling in. She did vocab tests and then they weren't, and like my kids were jumping for joy, no more vocabulary tests. And I'm like, that's weird that we're not gonna do that now. But, anyway, they're happy that it's gone. They wouldn't be, really. So, that's it.
I do have a question.
Okay.
About the vice principal.
Mhm.
You said that position opens up March 1st-ish, right? And who decides on who gets hired?
Ultimately, it's our decision, but since that's such a large impacting position, we'll most likely several rounds. We'll probably do a phone screener, and then we'll move on to staff and have kind of a large contingent of staff sit in front. Because again, it's a fairly big position in this building, and so then it'll probably resonate finally with us. But ultimately, as always with any hire, it comes down to actually a nice decision.
that set in stone to hire?
I don't know about stone. It's like in limestone right now. My bosses shared with me, the staff talks about it all the time. You know, there's a need. I can't be every place at once. Our schools, when we had less than 500, it's a little bit easier to move around, but you know, being at nearly 550 for a good chunk of the year, it's just hard to be places. Like, for example, I was in a IEP meeting today and we've got discipline and I've got observations and I have other things to do. So.
And what are, I know you don't think you need a VP, but what are you looking for? What are they looking for this person to do?
Are you talking like skills or what their job requirements would be?
What their job.
So they would split our evaluations in half. So right now I am evaluating 75 people and that would cut it down to 30, 35. They can also oversee teams. So whether that's a SPED team, whether it's a specials team, whether it's grade level teams, it helps with attendance and discipline. So right now our counselor does attendance along with our registrar. So that would then fall on their plate. They could take over the 504 coordinator. They could take over the assessment coordinator, which what Ashley does. So right now the typical AP role is farmed out to just several staff members that just do it out of the kindness of their hearts.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I am too.
I mean, you are kicking butt and taking names, and like everybody's only really capable of doing so much. I'm thrilled because I think there's so much on your plate, and I don't know how you do it. And so
I've been
I'm
saying that
glad
for years.
to hear that this is coming for you and for everybody for all the extra support. I think it's awesome.
We'll see. It seems a bit selfish, to be honest. It seems like a luxury, but you know, we'll see. We'll see how it works out.
Would you prefer a different position in an admin role that would support you guys better?
I always think kids first. And so to me, we haven't had one in the past because I would rather have our kids go from art, music, PE to wellness, STEAM, and library, you know, and that was really the trade-off. And, you know, why would somebody that benefits me and maybe a handful of kids where they run into all of our students? So it's really student-facing impact. And so now we just have extra funds in there. And so, you know, we don't have to reduce any of our specials. We don't have to take any jobs away from people. So it's just an added layer. So if we were short on funding, I would cut that position in a heartbeat.
Don't put that in the, yeah, don't put that in the job interview.
Yeah, no.
Our
Yeah.
funding goes down, you're out.
The first one.
When I arrived 10 years ago, we had a full-time PLS, which is what Ashley's position is now, and a full-time assistant principal. That assistant principal moved back to Ohio, and so we brought in a new assistant principal. Her name was Robin Hunt. Her daughter's in our building now. She was here for 4 years, right up until COVID. She got a job as a principal in Elizabeth, and so during COVID, when we were out of the building, it made no sense, so we just didn't hire that position. And then our enrollment was lower, and so we didn't hire it the following year. And then we decided to go to the double specials, just again, more kid facing things. And so it was not as bad last year, but then this year, like, our school is just so big. There's most schools. In fact, it's really just us. It's us and 2 other schools that are below 250 kids that don't have APs. Everybody else does. And so.
What about for special education? See, I mean, coming from a parent who has 15-year-old, that impacts the school. But I do see a lot more here, like second grade, they're happy. More children with more needs, and
Correct.
You know, they can't be here. I mean,
Yeah.
I see it in Clayton's class, and these teachers are doing a great job.
Yeah.
But I know we're also starting to see more needs for whether it's mild to moderate or SSN.
Correct. And that would be one of the prerequisites that we're going to be looking for, is at least some sort of background in special education, so then they could oversee that special education team. Correct. Yeah. It's just another set of eyes, another set of somebody who can be in and help, because that's one of the things right now. We can't be everywhere,
Right.
and we need to be.
Well, I mean, same for you guys, but the teachers who can't, kids that are right here that need a lot more help, your kids intermediate,
Yep.
you know, all these different range. I mean, it's challenging.
Correct.
So would the VP be helping with behavior stuff?
Attendance and discipline is usually the AP's role.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
So that would take, from what I see, a lot off of your.
Well, it just would help me. So if I'm sitting in observation, I could finish that observation and not have to run out and be able to do stuff like that. Yeah. Yep. Case in point today, when I had 5 disciplines and I'm sitting in an IEP meeting.
Gosh, you still would rather not have a VP.
again, we're looking at impact to kids, what's best for kids. And so,
I'm telling you what's best for kids is being able to have a kid be disciplined and not in class. You know how I feel about this, Miller.
mhm.
So we just will have to agree to disagree, because I very much disagree with you, and I think that it impacts the kids that are not doing anything wrong, that have to stay in class because, and this kid is over here throwing things or yelling or screaming, and they're still in class because somebody's not available to discipline them.
Yeah.
It is affecting these other kids.
Agreed. That's why it's in the budget.
Yeah, okay, so we're good, I'm just sorry. We agree to disagree. That's all my question.
He probably is not used to it for 4 years, just like the teacher's not used for getting help.
That's right.
Shove it
I'll
down
put
your
it in
throat,
the
you'll smile.
I'll put my HR hat on and be like, let me tell you how it goes.
Anything else? All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap up our meeting and we'll see you on April 23rd, 2024 for our final meeting of the year.
Thank you, Miller.
Thanks for the snacks.
That you didn't eat.
I'm going to.